Welcome everyone to Explore Classroom. My name is Jennifer Bergen and I'm so glad you're with us today. Here in the United States, we are celebrating a lot in May. Jewish American Heritage Month and Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. These varied groups of people have impacted local history and our communities today. They will also continue to impact our world. So to our viewers and explorers who identify as parts of these groups, we see you and we celebrate you. At National Geographic, we believe that anyone can be an explorer and that you have the power to make a difference in the world, no matter how old you are. And Explorer Classroom is here to inspire you with our stories from the field and connect you with our National Geographic explorers live to answer your questions. And this month, our theme is wildlife. From the teeny tiny fish deep in the ocean to the big bears on top of a mountain, animals across the globe need our help to ensure they are protected. And today our explorer does just that. Our explorer is Lucy Houliston. Lucy is passionate about animals and nature conservation. She loves to share this passion through writing, speaking, and making digital productions to share with schools and young people worldwide. Well, whether she's hosting an online trivia game to support sloths or creating a digital series for children in the United Kingdom, Lucy loves using her skills to protect wildlife and help others fall in love with conservation. And today she's going to show you how you too can share this passion and look for some really wild and wacky creatures who might live in your own backyard. Before we get into today's lesson, let's give a shout out to some of our registered guests. Hello to Wacky Elementary, World Learner Charter School, Mari and Lynn Elementary School, Jefferson County Open School, Batesburg Leesville Primary School, Five Falls Christian School, and of course, all of our homeschool families out there. We're so thrilled to have you. And with that, let's get Explorer Classroom started. It's time to meet Lucy and to learn all about unusual wildlife where we live. Lucy, take it away.
Hello, thank you so much, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming along today. I hope you're all excited. I certainly am, because today, as Jennifer said, I'm going to be talking about my favourite thing in the world, which is weird wildlife. And I've even got some strange animal specimens to show you. First, though, who am I? Where am I? And what do I do? Let me just share my screen so that you can see. Right, can everyone see that? Good. Okay, so as Jennifer said, I'm Lucy. I'm an explorer, a wildlife scientist, also known as a zoologist, and a storyteller, which means that not only do I get to spend a lot of time learning about the ways that animals, plants, and the wider environments that they're part of work, but I also get to have fun sharing that knowledge with other people in creative ways through things like social media, videos, writing, and talks like this one. And as part of my science and media work, I've gotten to travel all around, not just the UK, which is where I am now, so I'm right here, but I've also been to places like Central America, to South America, and all the way over here to Malaysia to watch, film, photograph, and write about different curious creatures. And talking of curious creatures, this is me when I was 6 years old with one of my favourite animals at the time. Shout out if you know what that is. A snail, that's right. When I was young, I loved bugs, and I still find them fascinating, mainly because of how strange they are. So some, like this centipede, have hundreds, well, it depends on the species, but dozens of legs. Others have taste buds on their feet and ears on their tummies. And some, like bees, talk to each other by dancing and can even see colours that we can't. Now, this morning, we are going to go on a virtual adventure around the world to find out more about some of the weird wildlife that I've met on my travels, and also right here on my doorstep. Before we jump in, though, there are a few words I might say that might be new to some of you. So let's make sure we all know what they mean. First up is habitat. So this basically describes a place where an animal lives and that contains all the things that it needs to survive, like food and areas to take shelter. And an example of a habitat might be something like a woodland or maybe even a garden. A second word that you might hear me talk about is conservation. Now, when we're talking about wildlife conservation broadly, it means protecting wildlife and making sure that wildlife is happy and healthy and that it doesn't go extinct. And last but not least, has anyone heard the word species before? You might have done. It's a similar word to type, really. So it's another word for type. Different species or types of animals and plants tend to have different behaviours, different appearances, and they use and interact with their environment in different ways. Now, here is a question for you all. When you think of the biggest, most colourful, most exciting animals, what habitat do you imagine them in? Where do they live? Have a little think, maybe get your teachers to drop a message in the comments. I bet maybe some of you are thinking woodlands, some of you might be thinking of the sea, but I bet a lot of you are saying, and I can see some people are saying, the jungle or the rainforest, and that is where we are headed first. Can you hear those sounds? I think you can hear the sounds of a jungle now. So let's head down here to Panama in Central America, which is full of areas that look like this. How about that? Beautiful. This is the jungle, of course, and this is where we're going to start our journey today. So I'm going to play you one very specific jungle sound now, one that's a little bit strange. And what I want you to do is take a guess at which animal made it. Right, are you ready? Listen to this. Here we go. This is an odd sound for you. There are some camera clicks in there, but what is that other sound? What animal? What animal do you think made that? Could it be a bird? Maybe a big cat? What do you think? I'm going to reveal the answer now because it is a bit of a tricky one, and I am trying not to laugh because it is also quite a funny sound. But that sound was, in fact, a baby sloth. Hands up who loves sloth. I certainly love sloths. Who doesn't love sloths? This is the baby sloth squeaking to its mum. And sloths, there are 7 species in the world, and they all live in Central and South America. And for 3 years, my job was to create sloth-themed videos for social media. And as part of that, a few summers ago, I got to spend 3 months in Panama living and working at a wildlife rescue centre that specialises in the rescue of sloths. And that squeaking sloth that you just saw is there in that basket. He was an orphaned rescued sloth called Branston. And sloths are, of course, famous for being slow, but they're not just slow on the outside, they're slow on the inside as well. Now, I've got another quiz for you. I would like you to have a guess at how long you think it would take a brown-throated sloth like Bella here to digest a single leaf. How long do you think? Drop your guesses in the chat. It could be days, it could be hours, it could be weeks, it could even be months. No guess is a wrong guess. Have a go. Drop your guesses in the chat and I will reveal the answer in a moment. But first, I've got a few strange facts about sloth bodies to share with you, starting with their claws. So here we have a skeleton of a 3-toed sloth, which, if you were wondering, is about the same size as a pet cat. And you can see their huge yellow claws. Can you see those? Now, those claws aren't your usual claws. They are, in fact, extra long finger bones that stick out of the top of their feet. Now, having claws made of bone instead of the softer stuff that makes up the claws of most other animals and our own fingernails as well is great for sloths because it makes them really, really strong so they can climb around upside down like that. Another weird fact about sloths is that they're so slow, plants can grow on them. They have special grooves in each strand of fur that trap moisture, and that helps algae, so the green stuff that you sometimes get in fish tanks and on the top of ponds, to grow on that fur. And sometimes it gives them a bit of a greenish tinge. green sloths. How about that? So quickly, returning to our leaf challenge now, I asked you, remember, how long you think it takes a three-toed sloth like Marley here to digest one leaf. I see some of you are actually quite close. It actually takes them 30 days. That's almost an entire month to digest just one leaf. That is how slow they are. So good job to anyone who did get that right. Now, I could go on and on and on and on about sloths, but I think it's time to leave Panama now and to travel down. So we're up here at the moment. We're going to travel down to another country called Ecuador, which is in South America. And I've been lucky enough to spend time camping in the forests here as part of two very exciting scientific research expeditions. And I was last there in August, so last summer, studying the forest's moths. Now, hands up, who's seen a butterfly? Most of you, right? So moths are very similar to butterflies. You've probably seen those as well. But one of the main things that makes moths different to butterflies is that most of them, although not all, fly at night rather than in the day. And we call animals that are active at night nocturnal animals. And I thought we'd have a quick vote just for fun to see who is the most popular, butterflies or moths. So hands up if you're team moth. What do you think? Anyone for team moth? Not many of you, that's okay. And hands up for team butterfly. Most of you, yeah. Lots more of you prefer butterflies. And I bet that's because when you think of a moth, you imagine something that's small and brown, right? Not something that's pretty and colourful like a butterfly. Well, you might be surprised to see some of the moths that I caught in Ecuador. Have you spotted these behind me? Some big moths. And they are actually really, really colourful. Look at how colourful they are. I have recreated the moth trap here that I set up in the forest. It was made of a white sheet and we shone a light onto it, and that attracts moths. Moths are attracted to light. But you can see here, there was this one, a bright pink and bright orange one with big eye spots on its wings that looked like owl's eyes. There was another one that looked a bit like a bee and had see-through wings. Can you see that one there? I'll bring it closer to the camera. Look at that moth. It's got completely see-through wings. And there were a few as well that were super fluffy, like this one. Look at how fluffy that moth is. But hold on a minute, right? Those are all jungle moths. And we know that the animals in the jungle are way more cool and colourful than the things in our backyards, right? Well, no. Now I want us to travel all the way back to this little group of islands where I live. You might remember the UK up here. And we are going to meet some of the moths, the amazing and downright bizarre moths that can be found here. So this is one of them. Look at that. We have more than 2,500 species of moth just in the UK, and some of them essentially dress themselves up as other animals or in bright fancy colours to try and hide from or scare off predators. And a predator is any other animal that might want to eat them. So I'm going to introduce you to some of those moths now. So first up, we have the elephant hawk moth, and that's what you can see on your screen. So cool because the caterpillar looks a bit like, some people think, an elephant's trunk. Now, if you look back up at me in the corner of the screen, you can see I've got a little model caterpillar here. This is an elephant hawk moth caterpillar, and you can see that this disguise, it helps the caterpillar to blend in with its background, and so it stays hidden from predators. And we call that nifty trick of blending into the background camouflage. Now, what happens though if a predator does happen to spot the caterpillar? Well, then the caterpillar will rely on these light patches, which you might be able to see just here. They're called eye spots, and they look like eyes. And if something tries to attack, the caterpillar will rear up. It will rear up the top half of its body like a snake, and hopefully that will scare the predator off, and the caterpillar can then wriggle away into safety. So you can see that moths are really, really bizarre and really colourful. There's another one I wanted to show you, and it's this one, another one that dresses itself up as another animal. Can you see that there? This is a day-flying moth called the lunar hornet moth. which disguises itself as another insect. Now, what do you think this moth has disguised itself as? Shout it out. A bee or a wasp, right? Exactly, it does. It looks a lot like a bee, doesn't it? And of course, predators tend to avoid bees and wasps because, like us, they don't want to get stung. And so they also avoid these moths, even though they're completely harmless. They don't sting at all. So moths don't just use visual tricks to avoid getting eaten. Remember that some of them do fly at night when it's dark, and seeing for a lot of animals in the dark is tricky, like it is for us. So instead of using bright colours like those day-flying moths do, they actually use sounds instead. So they produce sounds that say that they taste bad. So some moths, in other words, can actually talk to other nocturnal animals that might try and eat them. So other animals like bats. And speaking of bats, they are another weird animal that I work with. We have 17 species here in the UK, and I actually have a real bat to show you up here. Can you see that? And there's also a bat on the screen. You can see it flying. And what I want you to take a close look at are the sort of bones in the wings, because you might notice that the bones that support the sort of middle section of the wing, they aren't actually arm bones. So you can see those two thick arm bones at the top of the wing there, but the bones going through the center of the wing are actually extra long finger bones that have the wing skin stretched across them. So bats are really, they're not flying like this, they're flying like that. They're flying with their hands. And if I had fingers as long as a bat did, I think my finger here would probably run all the way down to my knee. Imagine that. They're super weird. But they get weirder because did you know that bats see with their ears? Listen to this. Now that is a bat call. And bat calls are normally too high pitched for us to hear, but if we lower the frequency, if we lower the pitch, that is what they sound like. And when bats produce one of those bursts of sound, the sounds travel out in front of them and bounce off of different objects that are in the bat's environment. And bats can actually receive those echoes or bounced off sounds and use those to build a picture in their heads of where objects are. And that's helpful because they're nocturnal animals, and so they can't really use their eyes to find food or avoid crashing into things. And all of this really goes to show that although jungle animals are amazing and I do love them, you don't need to travel to exotic places to see exciting wildlife. Equally, you don't have to go far or do anything, too complicated or too fancy to really help wildlife. I study and create talks, videos and pieces of writing about odd and overlooked animals online because I want to show people how interesting and how important they are and encourage other people to take action to help them and their habitats. And you can do that too. So I've got a little sort of challenge for you to go away and do after this talk, and that is to create a little odd animal hall of fame, either in your classroom or in your school hall or in one of your corridors. And all you need to do is identify a bug or another odd animal, add a photo or a drawing of it onto a sheet of paper, and then with the help of your teacher or another grown-up, find and write down 3 facts about it underneath. And you might want to use one of the animals that you've learned about in my talk today, but maybe you want to head out into your playground and go and find a bug that maybe you haven't paid much attention to before. You might see it every day and you might think, oh, it's a bit boring, but maybe once you start learning about it, it might turn out to be one of these weird and wonderful animals that I've spoken about today. Also, finally, if you do want to use your creativity to protect the jungles from home, you can get involved in Reserva's 1 Million Letters campaign. And Reserva is the conservation charity that I worked with to carry out my moth study in Ecuador. And they are calling on kids like you to write a letter explaining what it is you love about nature and why you think we should protect it, and then send it in to them. And each letter will be matched, this is the cool part, with $3 that will be used to protect a classroom-sized patch of moth and sloth habitat in Ecuador. So take a look around at that room that you're in. Imagine being able to protect a patch of forest that size just by writing a letter or drawing a picture. And maybe we'll add a link to that into the comments so you can go back after the lesson and have a look and find out more about how you can take part in that. But that is all. There you have it. You've met some of my favourite odd animals. You're about to go and find some yourself, I hope. But now I think it's over to you to ask some questions.
Well, friends, that's the end of today. We've got one more Explorer classroom before the school year's over. But don't worry, we'll come back again next year because we've got more things to do. So go ahead and register for Monday, June 5th. It's a while from now because in the United States, we're going to have a holiday. So Monday, June 5th, we will be with Explorer Sammy Ramsey, and we're going to learn how bees can make the world a better place for pollinators, like Lucy's friend, the moth. Register now. Go to natgeoed.org/Explorer Classroom. And hey, maybe you can click the bar to join us on screen, like several of our classroom friends did today. We'd love to hear your questions live. Teachers, there's also linked an Explorer Mindset and Action Guide. You can get that to have an interactive experience for every different show we host. Have a great day, everyone. Stay curious, keep exploring, and let's make some slothy waves really slow to Lucy and tell her thank you.